Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Newport City Mayor Rick Ufford-Chase. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Scott. You can call me Rick, just like you did the last time we did this before I was mayor or on council.
Right. Hey, I invited you on the show. Well, first, I haven't had you on since you rose to such an esteemed level. But also, I saw this video, I think it was 14 minutes long, about the city of Newport online. And I thought it was so well made. And quite honestly, I kind of thought it was honest, both good and bad. So I figured, let's have the mayor on.
Well, I'm pretty thrilled that it jogged you this way. It's touched a lot of people, I think. And it touched me. Honestly, and everybody I know who's seen it, I think is touched exactly because it has honesty in it, and they can see themselves, and we can see our community in it. So, it puts a lump in my throat when I watch it, honestly.
Got to give a shout out to one of the people involved. Is Sawyer Kavanaugh. He might not live here, but his father, Tim Kavanaugh, a 1984 graduate of North Country Union High School with me, is his father, and his mother also grew up in the area.
Well, and I mean, if we're going to give shout outs, really, Jake is the one that we worked most closely with at Mount Mansfield Media. And I mean, what y'all should know when you watch that video is that Jake came to us and explicitly said, I don't want a script. I don't even really want your outline of what you want to say. I just want to know who you think I should talk with, and the story will tell itself. And then he came back to us a couple of months later, having done a bunch of interviews, and said, here are the directions that I'm headed. And now let's talk about how we tighten this and turn it into a final product. And we couldn't be more thrilled with what came out at the end of the day.
Oh, no, it's great. Tell me, Neil, that's only part of the overall video. Is that it? Like, or is there going to be another component of it?
So the project, first of all, Newport Downtown Development is the group that actually managed this. And what happened was that we got a grant from the state tourism office called a T-term grant about a year ago or a little less. And part of the grant was that we were going to do advertising in Quebec to try and capture more people's interest in coming to Newport. And then we were ready to go out to bid. In fact, we put out a request for proposals and had some interest in early January to help us spend that money in an appropriate way. And then kind of all hell broke loose with the new president's actions, both the tariffs, but even more importantly, just kind of the disrespectful tone that President Trump brought to the relationship. And basically, all three of the companies that we had reached out to said, we can't take your money because this is the wrong time to do this kind of a campaign. It won't get any traction. And we don't have any energy for trying to do it right now. Right. So we went back to the state and said, how could we repurpose that money? And they said, well, you tell us. And we came up with this proposal to develop this video. So the package includes this video, which is the longest portion of the project. And then they are also working on, I think, 4 or 5 short form videos that are aimed at specific audiences. One is aimed at Canadians, one is aimed at visitors to the region, one is aimed at potential developers for Newport, and one is aimed at the local community. And we'll do those. And then finally, there will also be a series of probably 20 or 30 very short video spots that are little clips that we'll use for social media.
Right. I know Sawyer interviewed me, and at some point that's going to appear, I believe.
Totally possible. I don't even know the entire list of the people they interviewed, honestly.
Right. So how long have you been the mayor?
I was elected on March 4th of this year. So I've been mayor for about 8 months now.
And how has it been?
Oh, it's been, I think, in many ways, everything I hoped it might be. I was very fortunate in that as I became mayor, we elected 2 new council members, Andrew Touchette and Carter Finnegan, and they have both been fabulous. There was a remaining council member, Kevin Charbonneau, and I vacated a council seat, which the council then appointed John Manette to. And so we appointed John at first, and then we held a special election and confirmed his appointment by a vote of the community residents. And that council has been firing on all cylinders all summer long. We've created all kinds of task forces. Folks are really engaged, and we are working really hard to get our affairs in order.
Right. Now back to the video. One thing I said I liked was there was a lot of glowing stuff, but then there were other little pieces where it looked at some of the challenges. Well, let's start with the positives. You know, what did you think the positives were that video shows, or that film shows, about Newport?
Oh, I think what they did beautifully was capture both the beauty of the local area here and the lake, and also the beauty of the local character, and just how welcoming and supportive people in this community are of one another and of visitors when they come to spend time with us. So, you know, when I talk about my experience of Newport and the Northern NEK, you know, I always use the language of not just kindness, but a willingness to go out of one's way and support someone who's in trouble or really needs help. And also a grit and a determination that we're going to do hard things. And I think that really comes through in the video as well.
Right. I thought, you know, I always use the Wednesdays on the waterfront as something that really arose, something very positive that arose out of a bad time. You know, the whole EB5 issue. While at that point, the Newport City government was at that point rather dysfunctional. These two women, along with other people, stepped forward and they started that music series on the waterfront, and that has become quite the thing for the city and for the surrounding area.
Honestly, it's the signature event, as far as I'm concerned, for the city of Newport. Nothing else really rises anywhere near the level of Wednesdays on the Waterfront in terms of engaging community residents. And what I love most about it is that it's designed for locals, and it's phenomenally attractive to others from outside the area who come. And we had a story this summer where a woman was visiting the area, came to a Wednesday concert, the first one of the season, I believe. And 2 months later, she bought a business and a home here in Newport and has moved here and set up shop because she was so impressed with this community.
So has the benefits of it trickled onto Main Street and beyond? Like, do people visit the businesses while they are downtown to watch and listen to the music?
I think it's a work in progress. You know, I think by and large, folks who come down to the waterfront for that event are pretty single-minded of purpose. But we've been doing things that kind of draw people up through the plaza area in front of the state-owned Hebert building there, and then up the street. So there are food trucks on Main every week now that Newport Downtown Development organizes to match the organizing work that Andrea and Vero have done on the concert itself. And last year, Newport Downtown Development, using money from that same T-term grant, actually built 13 push carts, brightly painted push carts that we use for locals to put out their wares and sell things. But it's not generating, I would say it's not really designed to generate business traffic. But like so many things, part of what we're trying to do with that event is get people comfortable with the idea that there are things going on Main Street that are attractive and that they might want to come out for.
You know, I bet you one place that picks up some traffic as if they really need it is the ice cream stand at Pick and Shovel.
Doug and Tim. Yep. Tim
Pick and Shovel, you can't help but love them and they're celebrating 50 years this year. And well, as I said when I was interviewed for one of the pieces that the film crew is doing is, well, you know, the Pick and Shovel's 50 years old, but the Hamlet family, they've been operating in that greater region for maybe 100 some odd years, because the smokestack that stands in the hole in the ground, that was left. That's remnants of the Hamlet Bakery. So yeah, the Pick and Shovel and their ice cream and everything, they're just amazing.
Somebody in the video refers to it as the eighth wonder of the world, which I love. And I think it is, in fact, in many ways, the anchor business on our main street. People come from all over the region, and visitors come here, and it has to be on the top of their list of things to visit while they're here. Nobody goes away without visiting Pick and Shovel.
Well, depending on what they're coming for, but oftentimes I've brought visiting journalists to the Pick and Shovel, and they have been extremely amazed that I think it's really true. Is if you can't find it, if you can't find it at the Pick and Shovel, you probably don't need it, or they'll find it for you.
That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, they're celebrating 50 years, and so what other events are taking place on Main Street now? As in, anything new since you've started?
Oh, no, but we've been working to try and improve some of the things that have been around for a while. So this year, for the first time in a very long time, the city closed down the long block basically from 2nd Street down to Coventry Street in order to have the Chili Festival and Fall Festival event. And we had Cars of Yesteryear here on the street, and the Chili Festival was really well attended. So what we've been mostly trying to do is build on events that have already been taking place for some time. And there's a lot of talk about what happens next. Those events tend to be driven largely by the Chamber of Commerce, which has really come back to life in the last year. It's very exciting. And Newport Downtown Development working cooperatively together. And then, of course, our rec department, the big event that they pull off every year is the Gardner Park 4th of July event with the fireworks. And that's largely our rec department that does that.
Right. From my perspective as a history person, Newport is so rich in history, and I was so thrilled to find out that the Memphremagog Historical Society is finally coming back as a working operation, because a lot of us have spoken about how it's time for the Historical Society to come back, and it sounds like they're doing just that.
Well, it's been quiet, thoughtful work that's been going on for over 2 years to make that transition and kind of come alive again. And it's involved working with Barbara Malloy and Ernestine Pepin and Sandy McKinney and others who have been a part of it historically, and to try and figure out how to pick up the pieces that we really need to carry forward. And then we've actually just gotten the 501c3 status for the organization, so people can make tax-deductible donations. And we held as I think we held our first public event last Saturday, and almost 40 people showed up. It was wonderful. Dr. Alan Yale spoke. And, when I first arrived in the work with Newport Downtown Development, one of the things I asked immediately was, what's the history and who's been protecting it? Because any hope we have of trying to kind of lay a chart a course for the future for Newport is got to be built on the history here. And if we're smart, we learn those stories and tell them often as an understanding of kind of what the foundation is for all the work that we're trying to do today.
There's no the knowledge that Steenie and Sandy have in what I call the real history of Newport. They're just amazing. Just their knowledge, and interesting thing is Steenie is from Washington, D.C., but she certainly in her many decades here has ingratiated herself into the region, and she is just an encyclopedia of Newport history, particularly Main Street. Her and Sandy make for a great team.
Agreed.
Yes. So, when we talk about history, I love history, but I'm also a realist. There's a lot of people, who keep saying they want Newport to return to the old days. Well, wait a minute. What old days are you talking about? Because Newport's Main Street, or Newport in general, just like any community USA, has never remained stagnant for very long. Back in the early days of recording Newport history or the region's history, I interviewed people who actually remembered the days before the chain stores came. They were just small community stores. And when the chain stores started to come, they thought the end had come to Main Street. But most of the people today who are alive, when they talk about the quote, good old days, they're talking about the days of the chain stores. But we can fawn for those days all we want, but those days are gone. But that doesn't mean Newport's Main Street is gone. It means we just need to evolve.
No, that's right. I mean, Newport Downtown Development, on behalf of the city, led a process last year that created a new detailed master plan to guide the city's development efforts for our downtown over the next decade to 15 years.
Right.
And the fundamental understanding in that master plan, or the fundamental conviction in it, is that any vibrant downtown is going to be built on people choosing to live here because they want to be in a beautiful, livable, walkable city. Right. So the detailed master plan calls for 410 new units of housing in mixed use buildings that will have commercial and retail on the first floor and apartments on the second through, in some cases, sixth floor.
Right.
It calls for a new hotel on the waterfront. It calls for a new courthouse that the state's pining to build here. Calls for converting the old courthouses into some kind of housing that we market rate housing. We're hoping for a wide variety of new opportunities for small businesses because, as you suggest, we're not going back. It's not. No. There can absolutely be a time again when everyone in the Northern NEK looks to Newport as their downtown, but it will not be kind of a department store shopping mecca because department stores are no longer the way people choose to do their shopping. Right. However, we can create destination experiences, even for locals, good restaurants, boutique kinds of shops that do something creative. And I don't mean by boutique something kind of bougie, right? Like I just this afternoon went and visited with Dan Bathalon, who opened Retro Gaming on Main Street. And it's a fabulous little business that's very attractive to locals. So that's what we're really trying to build out.
Right, right. You know, the courthouse, come to think about it, is, well, I think that, you know what that would be good for, since they're going to change its use once the new courthouse comes in, that would make for on the bottom level, have a restaurant and the lodging up above. But that's only my idea because, we tore down the jail. The jail sat, the little jail that sat in the back of the courthouse, that sat there just decaying for so many years, which was not the responsibility of the city. I thought that would have made it for a great restaurant or an opportunity to go have a lodging establishment where you went behind bars just for the fun of it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So let's go back to the video again. So what were some of the issues that you discussed in it that wasn't so positive about the city?
Well, it's easy for anybody who lives here to name those issues, right? Like, nobody in the city went looking for the EB5 scandal that started 10 years ago now.
Right.
But it clearly has had a pretty serious impact on the community. And I suggest to folks that I don't think it's just about the hole that it left on our downtown, on Main Street and downtown. I think it's also a pretty serious damage that was done to the kind of community psyche. People's confidence was shaken, their trust in one another was shaken, and how we go about rebuilding that trust is critically important because we aren't going to, it's not easy to build any of what needs to be built in Newport today. Housing, nothing is easy to build and make the numbers for a developer. So in order to build up those things, we're going to have to build it on a strong sense of community, confidence in one another, and a commitment to see hard projects through to the end.
Right. I'm going to flip that, though, about the EB5. I agree with you that was a blow to confidence, but I also watched other really good things happen, such as the waterfront. It was like some people, it snapped them too. We were no longer looking in the air for the big bag of money, and I saw, for a time at least, there was a new momentum that we started digging inside ourselves for our own ingenuity. So I think it was a little of both. I think it was a kick to us, but I still think there's with other people, I think it was like, okay, we can't rely on other people. Let's do this ourselves.
I don't disagree with the notion that it brought out people's kind of determination and resilience. I think that's absolutely true. But I want to be clear. I mean, I've read the history now pretty carefully of the last 20 years, at least in Newport. And long before EB5, there were some really significant community initiatives that were taking place here. And there was a lot of public engagement in that process, starting with the RUDAT proposal in 2009 and again in 2011, which was this planning project that the city went through with lots and lots of community volunteers engaged in it. And one of the challenges was, in my judgment, that when there was the promise of a massive development project on Main Street, a lot of that community spirit kind of got squelched as people sat back and said, well, we can't really do anything until we see how this plays out. And then when it fell apart, even then, VCRD, Vermont Community Rural Development came in, I think it was 2018 or so, and did the Newport process. And again, 200 people involved over a period of several days, took place mostly at United Church. Lots and lots of engagement. So I agree with your overall premise that people want to make a difference in this town, and they're doing their level best to step up.
Right. The sad reality is, I watch this on social media. Since I post a lot of photos, I post a lot of history about Newport and the surrounding areas, that it always fascinates me. I can post a photo of Newport, a beautiful photo, new or old, and there's always the same crowd that they start turning in. They start just saying these things like bad mouth in Newport. We want change. Well, you know what? I think what these people don't realize, A, they're probably not helping create that change, but B, by them being on social media constantly trashing Newport, well, that isn't any way to get the positive change they're looking for in the city of Newport or anywhere.
So I agree that constructive spirit is critically important in this community. And I'm striving both to model that as mayor, encouraging the council to do so as well. And it's also true that even when people respond negatively, there's almost always something inside it or underneath it that is a kernel of truth or reality that is worth our trying to look deeper for. So, even when somebody says something in a way that I find hurtful or puts me on the defensive, I'm doing my level best to try and say, let's just take a step back here and say what's going on in that statement that we should actually be paying attention to. And I think people are beginning to shift. And I think the video actually is a huge part of that. I think most people, almost everybody who looked at that video could see themselves in it some way. And it was very hard to find fault with it.
No, it was just because, to be honest, is a lot of promotional stuff like that. I hate to say it, and I don't ever say it publicly, I roll my eyes because it makes Newport look like a polished gem. I just thought it just caught the balance between it being a beautiful place to live, but we need work. I love the realism, and I think a lot of other people probably appreciated that as well.
There was a lot of chuckling that went on because Emily Smart, who's a member of the board of Newport Downtown Development, makes that comment about 2/3 of the way through, where she says, this town, they know how to get shit done. And I thought it was beautiful. And in fact, it's the thing that most captures people's attention, because they can see themselves in that too, right? Even people who have really experienced some hard knocks They get up the next day and they figure out what has to be done. And that's the part of our community character that we have got to find a way to capitalize on.
Right. And to be fair too, the last like 15 or 20 years has been even a challenge, within city government. And I think now it seems like things are getting more stable. So the people of Newport kind of know what to expect, versus like, sometimes it was almost like open warfare. So I think, between the EB5 thing that we're putting behind us slowly, and the last couple of years in the municipal process, I think that's going to really help things move forward.
From your lips to God's ears.
So Rick, how come you decided, or the group decided, not to make this purely a positive piece, which has been done in the past?
Oh, because it would be dishonest. I mean, that's an easy question to answer, right? The whole thing that we're trying to do here has got to be built on transparency and honesty. That's how you rebuild trust. And everybody in this community would have known immediately if we had tried to whitewash the reality here. And
right.
So the reality is it's the fact that we've been knocked down in so many different ways that kind of it's a signature characteristic of this community, that they just don't stay down. They get up and they do the next thing that needs to be done.
Right. Yeah. I think that was a very good strategy, because back when I say a few years ago, it's probably 10 years ago, a piece was done on Newport. And I know some people came to Newport to see the Newport that they saw in the video, and they were not happy that they'd been tricked to come. And, but hey, you know what? We've got to wrap this up. But the thing is, I got to have you back on, because I feel like we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. We have the housing issue, which makes it difficult for people to move here. There's so much positive about Newport, and there's so many challenges. And I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg. I
would be happy to come back numerous times and just go deeper on a number of subjects. You name it and we'll do it.
Okay. Hey, thanks for coming on, and thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you, Scott.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.